friends, I'm Dr. Manju Gupta. I'm Associate Professor in Department of Education, Chaudhry Charan Singh University, Meerut College, Meerut. And I have already taught you about the teaching, instructions, indoctrination, learning in the previous lectures. Today I'm just going to teach you about the phases of teaching. So here we come. What are the phases of teaching? Teaching is a very complex phenomena. We need systematic planning to perform the task. Teaching has to be done in steps. The different steps constituting the process are called the phases of teaching. Each phase has some operations of teaching which create the situation for learning. Teaching process can be divided into three phases. The first one is reactive phase, that refers to the planning of teaching. Second phase is interactive phase, which refers to conduct and management. The third phase is post-active phase, and which refers to follow-up and the consolidation. So, friends, what is pre-active phase of teaching? This phase is the planning for teaching. Good planning makes the task for teacher smooth, functional and successful. There are two major steps involved in this phase. The first one is establishment of some kind of goals or objectives that we used to call instructional objectives. And the second one is discovering ways and means to achieve these objectives. How to achieve these objectives. So there are certain operations involved to fulfill that pre-active phase. So the first operation is the formulation or fixing up the goals. The teacher formulates in detail the instructional objectives in behavioral terms by using the taxonomy of behavioral objectives that is given by B.Ed. Bloom. These objectives are determined according to the student's psychology and needs of the society and the school as well. Objectives are determined according to what changes teacher expects in students by achieving these objectives. The second one is selection of contents or the subject matter to be taught in the class. So after fixing the teaching objectives, teacher decides about the content to be presented before the learners. For content selections, following points should be taken care of. The first is demand of the syllabus of the curriculum. Second is the entering behavior of the learners, expected learners. The third one is level of the motivation of the learners. And the fourth is teacher's preference for assessments related to the learners. The third operation is the arrangement of ideas and style of teaching. After selecting the presentable content, the teacher arranges these content elements. We do the content analysis and arrange these elements of the content in a logical and psychological sequence. These sequences should be able to assist the transfer of learning. The fourth is selecting methodology or the pedagogy. The teacher has to select appropriate strategies and tactics of teaching, keeping in view of the content and the objectives of the teaching. This operation is very, very important in the teacher education program. How to systematize the teaching learning process. The fifth operation is development of teaching strategies. The teacher should decide beforehand about the strategies and tricks, tactics which she has to use during the course of her classroom teaching. He or she should decide about when and what device of teaching should be used, when the teaching aids will be used, when recapitulation or evaluation be done. The sixth operation is deciding the duration, place and management of classroom teaching. Whether to take in the field trips or in the classroom or in the lab, this the teacher has to decide beforehand. The seventh is a decision about evaluation tools and techniques. So this stage is about working out the details of the teaching or activities a teacher wants to perform in the class. Here teacher hypothesizes about the possible outcomes of his or her action. So that was about the pre-active phase. Now we come to the interactive phase. Interactive phase of teaching refers to the execution of the plan made during the pre-active phase. This phase refers to conduct and management of teaching learning process. This is actual classroom teaching. In this phase, the teacher gives students the learning experiences through some suitable modes in a predetermined environment to achieve predetermined goals. The teacher interacts with the students so that desired changes can be brought in the learners. The teacher provides learners with the verbal stimulation which can be of various kinds. For example, asking the questions, listening to students' response, providing guidance, or making explanation, deliberation, discussion, etc. There are certain operations involved in this pre-active phase. This phase of teaching includes all those activities which a teacher uses after entering the classroom. It includes actual teaching done in the classroom where teacher encounters face-to-face with the learners. Here the teacher uses some of the techniques, aids, materials planned in the first phase. This helps the teacher in achieving the predetermined objectives. Here the following operations are undertaken by the teacher. The first operation is setting up or the sizing of the class. It refers to the activity of perceiving the whole class, due size of the class, getting the feel of the mood of the learners. Here teachers should be aware of how many in the group are looking attentive, how many are negligent or disinterested, who are intelligent or fast learners and who are the slow learners, and who are troublemakers or who are the troubleshooters. So she has to or he has to size up the class as per their motivational state. Then comes the second phase is second operation you may call is the knowing the learner's previous knowledge. Entering behavior. It is done after perceiving the class size. For the teacher, for this the teacher can start by knowing their abilities, their interest, their attitude and academic background of all these learners. The third operation is starting teaching. At this stage, the teacher starts teaching. This is done after diagnosing by questioning, showing some pictures or drawing some diagram on the blackboard. Here, two types of activities or the verbal interactions interchangeably involved between the teacher and the learners, which are initiation and the second one is the response. Through initiating the activities, teacher comes to know their entering behavior, or through their responses, teacher know where do they stand for. So the interactive phase of teaching is the classroom interaction between teacher and students. The interaction may be verbal or non-verbal. Interaction is the most important at this stage. This is interchangeably used between the teacher and students by initiation or response operation all the time. The teacher provides the stimuli and the student give the responses. In this phase, all the activities performed by the teacher when he or she enters the classroom are combined together. These activities are concerned with the presentation of content in the class using appropriate teaching methods, strategies, teaching aids, etc. Motivational techniques. This is very important. Motivational techniques are used now and then to keep students engaged in the learning process and maintain their interest throughout the lecture. Then comes the formative evaluation. This is again very important. It goes hand in hand while the teacher is teaching in the classroom to see the progress of the learners. Students, now we come to the third stage or the phase of the teaching. That is the post-active phase of teaching. This phase refers to the follow-up and the consolidation. It is the evaluation phase of teaching. It arises when the teacher has left the class and tries to have a look back into what happened in the class. This phase is concerned with the following activities. The first one is evaluation activity that requires tests and quizzes by observing students' reaction to the questions or by instructional situations and the comments given by the learners. The second one is the summing up the teaching task. To sum up, the teacher asks the question from the learners verbally or in written form. The behavior of the students are also measured in order to evaluate their achievement or to see the desirable change in their behavior. The third important activity is it works as the feedback device for the teachers and the learners as well. This is to make the teaching learning more significant. Friends, during this third phase of post-active phase of teaching, certain operations are undertaken by the teachers. The first one is determining the exact dimension of the behavioral change. Here the teacher compares the actual behavior changes in students with their expected behavioral changes. If desired behavioral changes are observed optimally in maximum students, then it means that teaching strategies are effective and efficient. The second operation, selection of testing devices and techniques. This is again very important. For comparing desired and actual behavioral changes among the learners, the teacher has to select appropriate testing device which are valid and reliable. For this, criterion reference tests are more preferred than the norm reference test for measuring the performances of the learners. The third operation, it is the result used as feedback device to the teachers and the learners. The students' results are also used for evaluating the effectiveness of the instructions and teaching strategies, or you can say the efficiency of the teacher. It provides feedback for the teachers for improving the teaching and changing strategies of teaching. It also provides feedback for the learners to improve their learning styles, study habits and focus. So these are certain operations to be taken care of during the post-active phase. Now we come to the last of this chapter, that is the importance of these operations in different phases of teaching. Friends, it focuses on the bringing desired behavioral changes in the students. Second, it provides the scientific basis for developing effective instructions of the teaching. Third, the classroom teaching and interaction can be made effective and efficient. Fourth, targeted teaching operations ultimately create the appropriate conditions of learning for achieving the desired goals. Fifth, teaching can be organized effectively at different levels by employing appropriate teaching activities or operations. So we can say that the process of teaching starts even before the teacher enters the classroom and continues even after the classroom interaction in the form of evaluation, feedback and other activities. All three teaching phases are interrelated to each other to make teaching and learning more meaningful and significant. Thank you so much.